Welcome to the Women in Latin Music panel. The music industry across all genres is famously male-dominated. As such, there are many pressing and relevant issues facing women within the industry. In order to focus our panel today, we've had a discussion with women working in Latin music in London about which of the many issues we should address. We decided to focus on two interrelated issues, education and mentoring, as these are two areas where there is a possibility of actively doing something that would make a real and tangible difference. We've invited two panelists to speak about their work. Maddie Shaw, who set up a project encouraging young girls to play jazz, and Lisa Lugo, who has been involved in formal and informal mentoring schemes. First up is Maddie Shaw. Maddie is an established London-based flute player, playing jazz, funk, Cuban and blues. She holds a performance ATCL and LTCL diploma in jazz flute from Trinity College. Maddie is the founder and director of the Girls Play Jazz project, established in 2017, which was set up to help redress the gender imbalance in jazz and improvised music by introducing girls and young women to jazz and developing them as improvising musicians. Girls Play Jazz run jazz improvisation workshop programs, introducing girls and young women to jazz, funk, blues, and world music improvisation, and developing them as jazz musicians. They organise masterclasses where top-level professionals from the London jazz scene come in to teach the girls. And they also arrange performance and development opportunities in well-known London venues, including Ronnie Scott's and the Vortex. So I'm going to hand you over to Maddie Shaw. Welcome, Maddie.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me. As Sarah said, I'm the director and founder of Girl Plays Jazz Project. We set up in 2017 and we are now a community interest company. Our objective is to introduce girls between the age of 8 and 12 primarily to jazz improvisation, and to support and develop girls under the age of 18 as improvising musicians. That's our core objective. So we have three principal strands. The first strand of our work is we run monthly or bi-monthly workshops for girls to come along who are beginners at improvising to have a go for the first time. And they do that with the support of a house band, the Girl Plays Jazz Project house band. And I'll come back to that in a bit. The second strand of our project is we invite professionals in to run masterclasses. And through this mechanism, we've been able to introduce the girls to different professionals on the London music scene, and also to expand the girls' repertoire into different styles, including Cuban music, Brazilian styles, gypsy jazz, different improvising approaches across the different world music styles. And our third strand is to seek out development opportunities for the girls. And primarily this has been building connections with London venues and arranging workshops and performances at different venues. So most recently in our last season, we had a workshop and a performance at Caramel in Wood Green. We had a performance at the Vortex. We had a performance at Popular Union as part of the London Jazz Festival last year. And we also have had two performances at Ronnie Scott's. Our last one, fortunately, coming in the start of March, days before lockdown, and the girls absolutely stormed it, I'm very pleased to say. So just to give you a little bit more detail about what we do, the backbone of what we do is our introduction to improvisation workshops. We have usually about between 10 and 15 girls who come along, and they often have had very little experience of improvising. We ask that they have played their instrument for at least 2 years, so they have some facility of playing, but they don't need to have any experience of improvising. And we then introduce them. Any instrument is welcome, all instruments are welcome to come along and try jazz improvisation. And we do this with the context of and the support of a house band. It's usually a 6-piece band. And this was a core objective for me in setting up the project. I wanted to provide the girls with the ability to take part in something that was different from what they would get at school typically. So rather than simply playing music with their peers and playing music with children and hearing a kind of sound world of children having a go in their ears. I wanted them to have a much more vertical learning structure where they got to play with professionals, where it would be a very much an ears-led approach, where they could hear the destination of travel, they could hear the professionals playing. I also really wanted the professional band to be part of it because I wanted the girls to start improvising and their first experience to feel very secure, and their first experience also to give them that real thrill of improvising. So even however faltering, however tentative their first steps, often we just start with 1 note, 2 notes, 3 notes, that they would come away and think, well, that sounds fantastic, that's brilliant, I want to do more, I really, really want to keep going. That's the whole thing that we wanted to do. So how did all this come about? Well, I decided to set up the project based on my experience as an improvising musician in London, which I think I can pick out 2 core elements really. The first is I found from informal contexts like jam sessions and bands, but also formal contexts, studying contexts, that it was quite clear that there are more men who are instrumental improvisers. The other strand for me, or the other key point for me, was that, and I realise this isn't true for everybody, but I personally have had a really positive experience improvising in London. I've had lots and lots of support from men and women. And so I suppose that combined effect got me thinking, well, why aren't there more females? Why aren't there more women who are instrumentalists, who are improvising? I went and looked at the research, or at least some of the research, which is quite well established, as many of you probably know, goes back at least to the 1970s. And that discussed lots of different barriers and obstacles to women's participation in jazz improvisation. But the one which really, really caught my attention was the early stages, the steps where the girls are starting out as instrumental musicians. So when they're 6, 7, 8, maybe, when they're parents and they're considering whether they're going to start playing a musical instrument, and where their teachers are encouraging them to, and schools are encouraging them to play a musical instrument. And what seemed to stand out to me from the research was that at that age, girls identify, and their parents identify with them playing a certain type of instrument, which is seen as feminine and female and typically quite delicate, so more flutes, violins, that kind of thing. And of course, there's no reason why any instrument shouldn't be a jazz improvising instrument, but typically those instruments aren't seen as playing those styles. And so what I saw from the research was simply that girls are starting off on this incredibly narrow track, a wonderful track, but a very limited one, where they're classical musicians and they're being classically trained and they're playing classical instruments more often than not. And then when later on in life they might be interested in different styles of music, the boys obviously have had a head start, so they're playing catch up. They won't have had that experience and that exposure and that confidence at a young age, whereas the boys may have more of that. So I am very lucky to have 3 daughters, and I thought, well, I think I could do something about that. I bet I could do something about that to contribute to changing that experience for girls in the present day. So I approached lots of parents that I know and spoke to them and surveyed them formally and said, would you be interested? Is there any appetite for this kind of workshop? And happily there was. So in March 2018, we ran our first introduction to improvisation workshop with our house band. Happily, it went really well, and the feedback was very, very positive. So since then, we've continued running the workshops. We tend to run them monthly or bi-monthly. The feedback from the parents who tended already to be committed to music learning for their children was they didn't want every Saturday or too often. They wanted more to be able to dip in and out of it. We added then our masterclass strands to the programme. Sarah provided our first masterclass. I'm pleased to say we had a Cuban masterclass with Jimmy as well, which was really terrific. Actually, the girls are absolutely brilliant. They're at the heart of all of this. They are so much fun to work with. they're so up for playing. They absolutely embrace the whole idea. And it was wonderful for me to just completely blow out of the water any kind of idea that there's some intrinsic difficulty with girls doing this kind of music, playing this kind of music, or participating in this way. Because if you work with girls of this age, you know, that's absolute rubbish. They are so on for it if they are given those avenues to take part, and that's a really wonderful thing. We then moved on to develop the programme by involving London venues, and I'm incredibly indebted actually to not only to the venues who have been prepared to support us and facilitate workshops and performances, but also I'm very gratified that lots of musicians on the London jazz scene have been really prepared to give their time and help and support and get behind this idea, which has just been terrific. And it's been brilliant for the girls to have the opportunity to meet different musicians, some of whom are super experienced. It's been really wonderful. The lockdown has obviously paused us. As I said, we had our gig at Ronnie Scott's, which was wonderful, one of the best ones we've had. The girls were absolutely storming. Just before lockdown, we've moved the programme online. So at the moment, the girls are able to record a core of jazz standards and are getting experience in learning those jazz standards and presenting their improvisation in a private group. And we're very much looking forward to when we can get back out and about again. So I just wanted to end really by saying just how positive an experience this has been for me, for all of the band members I know who've been involved in it, but also all the girls. We've had some great feedback. Some of the girls have gone on from used our course as a feeder system to go on to different opportunities and established programs across London. And that's really our biggest validation, is that we've got people in the door and we're able to then get them through to other opportunities. So that's all I have to say, but if you have any questions, I'll happily take them after we've had the next presentation.
Whoa. It's fantastic. I'm on mute. Well, I think we should start with a very simple question. You know, how many girls do you have, and how do people join? You know, your project.
So we run it on an individual basis. It's not run as a course. I felt it was better to run them as standalone workshops where people could just come along to a workshop as a standalone activity. That seemed to be what parents were more interested in, and it was easier for me to manage, because at the moment I'm the one kind of driving it, and it was just administratively easier for me to manage it that way. I wouldn't close down the possibility of doing a more structured, say, term course, but at the moment that's not really where we are. We have a maximum level of 15. Usually it depends on what actually we're doing, but with the core improvisation courses that we go up to 15, we want to keep the numbers low so the girls get a lot of improvising experience, and the ratio of band members to girls is a good one, so that we can have they can have just as much opportunity to improvise as possible. They also get the opportunity to listen to the musicians. I think we had up to 18 in our first birthday party. We had a samba workshop, which was run by the drummer, and that we were able to take more people and more children who weren't experienced at all in playing any kind of samba, and it was very good fun. But the way that we fund it is that the parents pay for the session. Those who can't afford it, we have free places, and we also fundraise. So it has to be a combination of all those three to keep it afloat.
That is amazing. And where are you based on? Where are the classes, you know, and how can people find you?
Well, the website is girlplaysjazz.org.uk. If you Google Girl Plays Jazz Project, it should come up. And at the moment we operate in central London. I have absolutely no objections to running classes anywhere at all. It's not supposed to be London centric. It's just where I live.
Maddie,
Yes.
can I just ask you about funding? So at the moment, I mean, have you managed to get any grants for the project? Because it strikes me it's a sort of project that should be able to attract funding.
Yes. So what we've done a crowdfunder, and what the plan was following our March performance of Ronnie Scott's was to apply to the Arts Council. I paused that because of everything, because of the pandemic and all the musicians who are needy of Arts Council grants. My judgment was, I'll just wait a bit and then wait till everything settles down and then put in an application then. I know also there's other avenues, for instance, through Ronnie Scott's Charitable Foundation, to pursue. So absolutely, we are absolutely committed to going down that route to get more funding and to develop the programme. It's just the pandemic has kind of knocked us off that course.
I believe Lisa has a question for you.
Maddie, this program is absolutely fantastic. So happy to learn more about it, and hopefully we can all, provide some support, whether it's financial, attending, hopefully future events in real life or otherwise. You said something really interesting in terms of feminine instruments and some of the research that you did in preparation for the development of the program. I would love to hear a little bit more about that, and would absolutely love to hear from some of the other ladies today, just from your point of view as a musician, that notion of being encouraged to take up certain instruments because they're seen to be a little bit more feminine versus something a little masculine, like drumming or congas, et cetera, et cetera. So would love to hear a little bit more about that.
Well, that was certainly borne out by the research that I read, and it's the caveat that I would say to this is that some of the research goes back to the 70s, and in different parts of the UK, it's also possible that it's changing, I think, and people's perceptions are changing about what girls should play and what girls shouldn't play. I think my experience was very much in that vein. So I should say, first of all, I'm a flute player, so I play a girly instrument, as it were. And it's also important to say that all instruments, jazz instruments, and all instruments are valid, and all instruments are improvising instruments. So that's another difficulty that I think girls face, as I said. But certainly with my daughters, my eldest daughter, when she was 5 or 6, started drumming, and with Michelle Dries, actually. And what I was really aware of was all her contemporaries were starting to play violin in the main, and there's nothing wrong with violin. It's a wonderful instrument, and there's nothing wrong with classical violin. It's a wonderful style. It just felt that the horizons were quite narrow. And what I also found when I did the survey, and I asked people what they thought, the parents, what they thought they would participate in, is it didn't actually take very much to say, well, have you thought about doing this? And for some girls, it really was not their cup of tea. I mean, we found some people did not want to come along because it was a terrifying prospect, or some girls came and it was just not the thing that they wanted to do. They wanted to carry on in the style that they were doing, the classical style that they were doing, reading the music. But lots of the girls just didn't feel like that. And some of the girls came along playing violin and then left saying, I want to play trumpet, which was brilliant, really. The whole objective really was wanting to expand the minds of the girls so that they could feel that they had options. And if the option was, I absolutely love being classically trained as a violinist, then wonderful. And if the option was, I want to play gypsy jazz as a violinist, that's wonderful. And if the option is, actually, I really want to play double bass, then that's terrific too. Was really about opening the minds and the eyes of the parents to the possibilities, really. That was our goal.
Can I just come in on that, actually, thinking of my experience of playing salsa piano. I mean, I remember when I first went to learn, I was playing reggae music, and I went to learn with a piano player on the London scene who will remain nameless, who's wonderful, but he did say to me, this was a long time ago, he said to me, I'll teach you, I have to say it in the non-rude way, I'll teach you, but you'll never be able to play because you're not a man, is what he said to me. But I do think that there's something special about the London Latin scene, which is quite positive, is that there are actually a lot more female musicians coming onto the scene now. And I do think there is the issue of we are still battling against the perception that women can't play, particularly things like the percussion and bass and piano. Yeah, they can play the girly instruments, trumpet, all those things. But they're actually, if you look, there's some women for quite a few years now who have actually sort of made inroads into playing on those instruments. Not enough of us really, but
I definitely agree.
Yes, I want to express. Yeah, when I was later in Venezuela, of course, I was singing in all kind of Afro Venezuelan groups, and I so wanted to play the drums, and I was told no, you know, by the guys, like, no, you sing, you play the cuatro, the girly instruments, and I got really angry. But it's beautiful to see how it's changing, and even, you know, after coming to Europe, you know, you say, but it was the same in capoeira. It has been the same in so many places, and it's beautiful to see the changes that are happening now. But yeah, it's great to keep doing it, because this perception of feminine instruments are completely forgotten. But
just to chip in, if I may, I mean, I completely agree, and it's something I should say, that there's definitely some unbelievable women musicians coming through on the London jazz scene. They're just absolutely on fire, and there's also a core of women who've been fighting the fight and working hugely hard for years and years, and have been some of them very, very, very supportive of the project as well, and been doing it far longer than I have. And it's just great for this to feel that this project just adds an extra bit of support to that collective, really, that collective effort. So
I think Angie wants to come in.
Hi. Yeah, I just wanted to, like, again, touch on the same point that people have been touching about the feminine instruments. And I think in the Latin community, or Latin musical community here in London, I think I was raised in this community, so like the same, you're saying feminine instruments, you know, I started playing the piano, and it's in Latin music per se, like the genre, there are very few female role models, famous ones, shall we say, like notable female percussionists. People talk about people like Sheila E., but there's very few female instrumentalists which we know by name. If you really think hard, we know the female singers, and there are also not many in the Afro-tropical style of Latin music, but we don't have, you know, female timbal players that we know. We don't know female bass players, so you're not raised in that way. So I think a lot of female Latin musicians who are living here, or who play Latin music, females, start off going into the world as singers, and then, like many people, then discover, you know, like you say, like it's almost catching up. You catch up now that things are changing, especially if you're, you know, in London or in a Western country where there is a bit more of a, there are more female instrumentalists, I'd say. I don't know statistically what the ratio is, but there's probably more female instrumentalists in a city like London than, say, somewhere like Santiago de Chile, for example. I'm just picking to female vocalists, because a lot of them, like you say, play catch up later on, start thinking, I never had the opportunity to play bass or to play trombone, and then it's a lot of us, including myself, are playing the catch up kind of because of this gendering of the instruments. And there's a lot of like social psychological research into that. Really, there's nothing kind of innate, it's just socialization. And we all know that role models, you know, seeing a female drummer, jazz drummer, for example, makes a massive difference. But I think in Latin music, you know, we are just in London trying to get, like Sarah says, there's a community being built up of instrumentalists, of female instrumentalists. But it's exciting because it's kind of quite recent. So yeah.
Guys, I think we need to move on to the next presentation, which is Lisa's, so we have time, and then we can come back to discussion. I'm sorry to cut it when it's so interesting, what now? Lisa's recorded her presentation, so I'm going to share my screen with everyone, and we can all watch it. Let me know that you can hear it okay, yeah?
Saludos. I'm Lisa Lugo, and I'm very excited to be part of LoLa MC this year. I've worked in the music industry for almost 20 years, mainly in brand and sponsorship marketing, both in Latin music and mainstream music, here in London for the past 6 years and back in New York City. Right now, I'm VP of Marketing and Creative Solutions within brand partnerships at Live Nation. I've been with Live Nation for over 10 years, again, both here in London and back in New York City. And my team includes a whole host of integrated marketing functions, such as creative solutions, design, digital, research, insights, strategy, and public relations. And we essentially develop solutions and music marketing programs for brand partners. So brands like Google, Co-op, Carlsberg, O2, Amazon Music, and several others. Back in New York City, and prior to my time at Live Nation, I worked in the advertising industry, leading US Hispanic marketing and Latin music strategies with big brands like Heineken, McDonald's, L'Oreal, several others, and partnerships with the Latin Grammys, the Billboard Latin Music Awards, and lots of big national music tours with artists like Ricky Martin, Maná, Mark Anthony, and several others. So throughout uni and at the very start of my career, I didn't have any contacts. I was basically starting from scratch on my own, really just relying on hustle and hard work. And I've been within the music and sports industry for all of my career, mainly working within male-dominated teams, which, you know, has been quite challenging at times. But what's really made the difference for me is mentorship, both at the beginning of my career and throughout, and now, quite frankly. So today I'd like to talk to you a little bit about my experience with mentorship and provide some recommendations on how you can get started and how to really maximize the most out of the relationship with a mentor. So many of the conversations to date have been really around increasing representation and equity for women in the Latin music sector. And I think mentorship is a really great tool to be able to do this in two ways, really. First and foremost, to propel and increase exposure for women that are currently working in the space, whether you're a musician, a promoter, a DJ, a dancer, someone working at a label, in marketing and media, et cetera, et cetera. And then also to support the next generation of girls and young women in the industry to make sure that we're growing the sector as well. So really mentorship is about relying on people who are more experienced than you are, someone to consult with, someone to build trust with, at the heart, someone who can really teach you and you can learn from. So guidance, helping you develop, supporting you, giving you encouragement, because we all need a bit of confidence from time to time, right? Challenging you and playing devil's advocate when you're dealing with a difficult situation. And it's also a way of expanding your network and getting to know the professional community that you're a part of. So for me, it's not really about one person and about having one mentor. I've had a lot of different mentors throughout my career. I've always thought about it as sort of having a personal board of directors of sorts and really being able to call on different mentors for different things. They might be different experiences, but they're all more experienced than me, and that's the point. So I relied on mentors for things like dealing with conflict, boosting my confidence, managing a growing team, negotiating a promotion and raise, which is something that's always been quite challenging, especially for many women. It's not something they really teach you in school, most people anyway. And especially now in times of pandemic, building resilience, both personal resilience and resilience for those around you. So these things are really short-term, they're long-term, sometimes they're planned, sometimes they're unplanned. And on the flip side of that, I also mentor a lot of young people. And it's funny, one young lady in LA who I mentor calls me Thea, Auntie. And this goes to show sort of that relationship that exists between mentor and mentee is one of guidance and encouragement, but also one of comfort when needed, especially during the times that we're living in right now with the pandemic. we all need to hear that things will be okay. And sort of cultivating that relationship, and almost having the notion of tias and tios, madrinas, padrinos, having godparents of your career can really provide that level of professional support and development along the way. So what I tell people before you even get a mentor, before you're thinking about contacting someone, whether it be an organization or individuals, you really have to prepare. So before you do this, you have to think about why you actually want a mentor and what you're looking to achieve. This is not about someone getting you a job per se, or getting you an internship or an apprenticeship. This is really about developing behaviors, skills, different tools, really thinking about what you want to learn, what you have to navigate. Could be a financial aspect of our business, right? There's a finding funding panel this afternoon. That's a great place to start to learn and to maybe make some connections with the professionals that are on that panel who know how to find funding, for example. But again, it's about having goals that are really actionable and really measurable. So there's no real one size fits all to getting a mentor. There's a couple of different ways you can approach it. There's organizations that have very formal mentorship programs for a set time period. And the benefit to this is there's structure, there's assignments, there's projects, there's exercises, but then there's also the active, proactive approach of finding your own mentor, identifying your own mentor based on what you're looking to learn, who you're looking to learn from, and you really driving that relationship and driving the agenda forward. So I really tell people, get a blended approach, try both, and it really depends on what your goals are and what you're looking to achieve. And tapping into your professional network, whether it's LinkedIn, whether it's the community that we're a part of here in this space with LoLa MC, the Latino Life and Como No communities are a great place to start. But it's really about what you're looking to achieve and the type of experience that you're looking to model. And most people are open to help. I mean, the key here is to really maximize the relationships and to be proactive, but to also hold yourself accountable. The most important things in these types of relationships are establishing very clear goals and managing expectations and agreeing on how often to meet. So it's really about building that trust with your mentor or mentee and embracing that level of feedback. And then from a woman's point of view, there's loads of nuances to our experiences, right? I mean, some are dealing with being working moms and trying to balance home life and work life. There's a massive challenge of gender inequity. So how we're being treated, how we're being paid, how are we negotiating and advocating for ourselves and others. And there's also the challenge of existing traditional gender roles and expectations if you're part of a Latino household, which is another nuance to deal with as well. So it really helps to contact and talk to other experienced women who are dealing with all of these complexities to be able to have a safe space to be honest and talk about these things. But I also believe in the benefit of having male mentors as well and male mentees, because again, this is about learning based on skills and learning based on different experiences, and having men be a part of that is really important as well. And I think you sort of should also consider people outside of your industry, as long as they have the skills that you're looking to learn from. So for example, I learned how to negotiate from someone who works in finance, which is completely outside of the music sector. But then I complemented that with understanding things from an artist management and promoter point of view from a finance perspective. So really blending those two things have been really important. So in terms of maximizing that mentor relationship, again, it's about being organized and responsible and holding yourself accountable. But it's also being enthusiastic, right? I mean, everyone's here because they're interested in propelling their career forward. And there's a certain level of enthusiasm that comes along with that, and a level of curiosity, right? Of asking questions of your mentor or mentee for that fact, and really digging into experience and digging into the nuances. But then also, preparation, right? You have to set the agenda. You have to be respectful of time. You have to share the wins and the losses equally. I mean, some of my most fulfilling work as both a mentor and mentee was around things that failed, projects that didn't go the right way. And sometimes we sort of need that permission to fail and to be able to learn from that, so we can succeed and for those things to not happen again. And especially right now during the pandemic, where so many people are struggling, both personally and professionally, so many people are dealing with redundancies and financial issues. Now's really the time to build resilience and to be flexible and to be nimble and to learn from one another. And then there's those two terrible words from a woman's point of view, right? Imposter syndrome, which so many of us deal with, myself included. But a mentor can really help get you out of your head and focus on your skills and focus on your worth, as long as you're being specific and as long as you're being intentional with the relationship. And then just to pivot for a moment, is that notion of giving back, right? Everybody here should be a mentor, should consider mentoring someone who's less experienced than yourself. Everybody has something to offer, especially for young people who are coming up behind us, right? Which is why, a lot of the work that Maddie is doing with the Girls Play Jazz project is so important right now. And being a mentor can also be really rewarding. Not only are you giving back to your community and helping to grow the next generation of professionals within our community, but you have the ability to learn from young people, learn from a different generation, improve your own listening and communication skills, help problem solve, and then boost confidence both on your side and the mentee's side. And ultimately, all of this is really to push the Latin scene forward and propel the next generation of music DJs, promoters, marketers, et cetera, which really is why we're all here. So yes, we can all hustle individually, right? But success doesn't happen solo. So it's about challenging yourself, holding yourself accountable, and passing that opportunity on to others to make sure that you're being supportive as a member of this community. And don't underestimate yourself. Everyone here has something to offer to someone who's coming up behind you who can really use your help. And don't forget, the Latino life and the Como No community is filled with tons of professionals in Latin music, all from sectors throughout. It's a great place to start. This is a safe space to ask for guidance. People like Sarah, Maddie, Jose Luis, Andy, and tons of other panelists throughout the day, they've done it, they're doing it. Tap into their experience, myself the same. We've all likely experienced something that you're facing now, something that you're being challenged now. And ultimately, everybody's here because we believe in the Latin music scene in the UK. We're committed to growing it, we're committed to supporting it, and pushing the culture forward. And that's only going to happen if we come together as a community and do that together and ask for help. And people who authentically want to push the music scene forward will be willing to do so.
Amazing.
Thank you so much, Lisa. Lisa and Maddie, both amazing, amazing women. We're so privileged to be here with you. Anyone want to come in with anything?
I don't know. I think she said it all. It's really, and I found it really potent. And this notion, I love it. I'm also a therapist apart from a musician. So you have a problem, you go and solve it. I love the way that you encourage us. Just it's what I think. You like something, do your best. Find the guidance. Study, practice. It's really nice. There was something when you say how something to help to get the confidence is the nourishment that we can give to each other, nourishing, acknowledging the work and the experience of another person, and not be shy to say, I don't know this, I would love to do it, and learn it. It's really amazing. Lisa, I'm so proud of you.
Yeah. I mean, one I think it would be nice for us to maybe take away and discuss would be thinking about how we could maybe set up an informal mentoring scheme among, well, start with the women in Latin music in London. I mean, I think particularly, as Lisa said, in these really difficult times, we all need to give each other support.
Yeah.
And it would be really good to discuss this further. I can see actually that Jamie wants to come in, and then Maddie wants to say something. So Jamie, over to you.
I really like the fact that Lisa said that as a community we should come together to be able to move the music forward. and it is important to have a mentor and to give back as a mentor as well. How would you suggest that we find a mentor? Because I think that, I mean, personally, I'm very used to kind of work on my own. Yes, having a team, but a team that I manage usually. And I'm used to, if there's a problem, I have to solve it, and I have to find a solution, and I have to do it. And I don't know if it's for every Latino like this, but this is that for me. Like I have to, remangarme and go for it. So how do you suggest that we can, find somebody that can be a mentor really, and that can actually give us something? And how can we, I mean, giving back is easier for like to give back to the younger generation, of course, but like how can we find somebody that can, be our mentor? Which are the propositions?
It's a great question. I mean, I usually start with, I start with recommending that you think about what are you actually looking to achieve? So is it, I want to learn more about funding, or I want to figure out how to get better bookings, or, depending on what area of the business you're in. So really thinking about what you need, and then identifying the people who, if it's finding funding, you should be reaching out to the people who give funding just to get some tips on how to approach it through their lens. So I think it all really depends on what you're looking to achieve, and then identifying a whole bunch of people, not just one or two, because quite frankly, for every 5 people you might contact, you'll get maybe 2 responses. It's just the reality of people being busy, right? And maybe people are already mentoring other people. But I think just being honest and authentic about what you're looking to achieve and why you've selected that person to potentially help you. I get quite a few requests at Live Nation and outside of Live Nation, quite frankly, and I always take people up on it. But the people that I respond to the quickest, honestly, are the people who are like, I am looking to achieve X, Y, Z. I know that you've done this. I think you can help me. Can we talk for 15 minutes? And those are the people that I respond to the quickest, because I know that they've already thought about what they actually need from me, versus a very, oh, can you be my mentor? Well, why? What do you need from me? What are you looking to achieve? So I would say you have to do that work first, and then start contacting people and leverage your network.
I really find it weird to just go to somebody that I think that could help me and just say, hey, can you help me with this? Which I don't know. It's a person I don't know. Why would this person come and say to a nobody, or like nobody in the sense that that doesn't know me? Yeah, of course. Like, let me give you my advice freely and nicely. And like, this is, it sounds, I understand the concept, but it really sounds weird to me to just go to somebody, hey, hi, I want to achieve this. Would you help me?
No, I agree. And it is weird. It's not the most natural thing, no? But that's why I think it's always best to start within the community that you're already a part of.
But I would like to add something. It's very interesting. You started the conversation, Jamie, saying, I do everything myself. I do have to, I have to solve something. I have a problem and I sort it out. And it's more or less how we have been kind of conditioned to do it, to do stuff. And then, I used to be like that. And then when we start changing the mind perception, and I say, look, actually, I don't need to do everything, to work out by myself. I really excel at this, and I need help in this. And then, then suddenly when you're opening your mind for that, then, you read an article, you find, you start kind of, opening up to the, to see the people who can help you. And the thing that Lisa says, like, you have to be sure what is that you need for someone. And then, you will find which needs you can, or needs or problems, it can be faster, be solved faster and in a better way with the help of someone else. But at the beginning, it's a change of mind or perception of stuff, that you don't have to do everything by yourself. And I love the idea that we could start maybe between us, start this. I mean, that could be another discussion, how we design a mentoring group, a workshop one day. I don't know. I think here is this is just the beginning, and I love it.
And I think that that's a natural place to start, right? We have this already built-in community. We have LoLa MC, there's Latino Life, there's Como No. Like all of this exists, and everybody has the same goal to push the community, push the culture, push the music forward. So in theory, everyone in this community, and I'll challenge everyone on the panels, right? We should all be taking on mentees. We should all be mentors and mentees to the community, to each other first, build this foundation up, and then we start going outside, maybe to, you know, more general music, mainstream music, mentors who can help us as well. But let's start here. We already have each other. We already know, you know, we know each other. Some of us do, some of us don't, but this community already exists.
Yeah, but I understand also, Jamie, I don't know if I'm pronouncing your name.
Jamie.
Jamie. Jamie, gracias. Is exactly, it's like when you say there is Como No, there is Lola, and then, okay, what do I, you know, what I'm going to ask Andy Wood, you know, but, you know, it's like, yeah, I think we can work a bit more on that, like what kind of help can people really provide, or what it's a bit, yeah.
Can I let Maddie here? I believe she had a question.
I do. It was actually quite similar. I was just very interested in whether, in your experience of these relationships, whether you approach the people informally saying, can I have the benefit of your advice? Can you help me on this? Or whether you actually said, would you be my mentor? Which I think you've answered. But I have another question, actually. I think in your experience, do you think that you found it more beneficial, the informal relationships, or the very structured formal mentoring outlets that you mentioned at the start of your talk? I mean, or do they both have a role to play, I suppose?
For me personally, they've both played a role. So the more formal mentorship programs through organizations, I've participated in those at a time where I needed very sort of foundational skills. So I needed to improve my presentation skills. And that was something that I worked on with a mentor through this program, with, you know, very sort of formalized exercises and formalized projects to work on. So that was something that was very, very specific. But as I've progressed and have been dealing more with sort of the, you know, behavioral side of things, whether it's managing a bigger team or, you know, working with difficult personalities, things of that nature, it's more those informal mentor relationships that have been more beneficial versus something formal. So I would say blended for me has worked based on, you know, what I was looking to achieve.
Angie, you had a question?
Yeah, I just wanted to kind of agree kind of a lot with what Lisa said about the finding the mentors within us and becoming the mentees. Definitely. I think, like Jamie said, a lot of us have been used to having to do things, you know, be the ones that problem solve and kind of take the lead, and never consider, you know, who would want to mentor me, or how do I approach someone. I think there's a whole range of skill set that many women in Latin music have, and many specialisms. We're very diverse within the community. There's a lot of people that have different, you know, I work in education, Sarah works in education, some of us have more legal knowledge that we're looking for, like, so I think it's interesting as well what Luzmila was saying about finding the skills that we have within our community, finding, or kind of in a way doing like an audit, seeing who knows what and who is interested in what, and then create those focus groups. So it could be like, well, I don't know, my specialism is, you know, music and the law, for example, contracts, or you know, legalities of working and doing things like that. Or another person, their specialism is probably an aficionado of doing lots of technical sound recording, and they have, so creating kind of first focus groups, and then maybe, like Lisa said, expanding to then contacting people outside. But sometimes I do believe that we have a lot to offer within our community, and we maybe underestimate, back to the whole imposter syndrome, what we can offer within ourselves, a vast experience. And sometimes it's like we're going around in circles, but we have the answers. And maybe we might not feel confident or bold to go and knock on that door, but maybe we have a woman in the community who can support us to get to that level. And it's also about that, you know, there's a lot of layers to this. It's building the confidence to ask and to you know, they say those who don't ask don't get. If you don't ask, you don't get. You're just not going to get. No one's going to, we're not in those times where you get discovered anymore if you're thinking of your, you know, it's about knocking, and, you know, and it's the cliche, the age-old story of, you know, how many knocks did you get till you got to where you wanted to go. And it's about resilience as well, like what Lisa was saying, a lot of building resilience within. But I definitely, in summary, the community, we should look to ourselves. There's so much experience there. That's what I have to say.
Yeah. Beautiful.
Anyone else want to come in? Okay, I think, because we're getting towards the end of the time anyway, so I think this is a conversation, and hopefully people who are watching this as well can join in this conversation, and we can take it further. And I think it would be amazing if we, and it doesn't have to be all women, but as women in Latin music in London can actually instigate something and think about whether we can set up a project to do education with young people, whether we can set up informal initially mentoring between us, what we can actually do to push this forward, because they're very positive steps, and I think more needed than ever in these really, really difficult times. Anyone want to say anything to round off?
I just want to well, similar to what I was saying, I think that with the use of technology, there are ways which we could create, like I said, these teams or these focus groups that could begin sharing practice, sharing, and actually, you know, it could be WhatsApp, it could be, you know, the technicality of that is maybe face to face if that's possible, and begin kind of promoting those groups, so new women in Latin music can then know where to find that specific group that's dealing with, like I said, with specific interests, because you know, like I said, different levels of experience within the community, and some women are looking for things to do with marketing and promotion, others are fine with that, others are looking for things to do with, like I said, managing bands or contacting agents or etc. So yeah, I think that there are practical tips that we need to take on board to create these focus groups.
Well, thank you very much, all of you, you're all amazing, and thank you so much to Maddie and to Lisa for presenting, and we'll speak soon.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Thank you.